Okay, let's talk more about the ongoing tariff issues, and for that we're joined by Sourabh Gupta. Sourabh is a senior Asia-Pacific International Relations Policy Specialist at the Institute for China-America Studies. Good to see you again. Thanks so much for taking time to chat with us.
Nice to be on.
Okay, so we found out over the weekend that Trump is now targeting the EU and Mexico. His argument is that these nations have been ripping the U.S. off for years, and he says the United States will begin hitting them with that 30% tariff on August 1st. What's the reaction? Because the markets certainly weren't rattled today. Do you think in any way Trump's losing his bite?
No, I wouldn't actually. I would not say he is losing his bite. I know the way the market has taken it is that, these tariffs were supposed to come in on July 9th. That's when the pause expired, and now they've just been pushed back by 3 weeks to August 1st. And as they say, Trump always chickens out, and he will keep chickening out, and therefore these deadlines will get extended, and they'll come to some sort of arrangement. I wouldn't be as confident on that line. I think Trump is very, very, very determined to finally impose tariffs and try to reduce the trade deficit, and also to reshore industrially salient industries and sectors to the U.S. Won't happen right away, but on balance, he will get many of these tariffs imposed, and at that point of time, I think it will be a shock to markets. Although I'm not saying that will happen on August 1st. It might get pushed beyond if there are successful negotiations, but he is very much in that mode to do that.
Yeah, and picking up on what you said, if we've learned anything from Trump, he hates to be looked at as being weak or failing at anything. So he's clearly has the desire to stick to his guns. But so many have repeatedly been shaking their heads, wondering why Trump continues to escalate tariff threats against so many key trading partners all at once.
That's true, but looked at it from Trump's point of view, he has just one term left, and essentially he has just a year and a half to get as much of this done. And he's facing court challenges, et cetera, so he wants to do this fast, he wants to do this quickly. It's entirely accurate, as he said. I mean, for the last 40 years, he has felt this way, that this has been unfairness to the United States. If the Europeans or anybody wants to sell goods to Americans, they need to produce here, use American labor, sell to the American consumer. Now he has a one-sided view of trade and a very erroneous view of trade, but that doesn't mean he won't stick to his guns. He will stick to his guns. We're not going to see finally tariffs as big as he's announcing in the reciprocal tariffs and in the sectoral tariffs. They may not be as bad, but when they finally get imposed, because there are limits to what countries can compromise and wish to compromise to a bully like Mr. Trump. And so at the end of the day, I think there will be bad news. It won't be as bad as it seems, but it'll be pretty high tariffs, which will shock everybody, frankly.
Okay, so how are these new tariffs, the threats even, likely to affect American consumers and everyday prices? When are we going to see this big hit everybody's been talking about?
We will see this big hit everyone's talking about when the tariffs actually get implemented. Some amounts, small amounts, dribble-drabble of tariffs are being implemented, but fundamentally, both the reciprocal tariffs as well as the sectoral tariffs have not really kicked in a big way. I would say the sectoral tariffs actually are the ones to really fear rather than the reciprocal tariffs. The reciprocal tariffs can be negotiated down to a pretty low number, but the sectoral tariffs, because he is so determined to reshore particular industrially salient industries, and for him that's a very broad range. We're talking pharmaceuticals, autos, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I mean, and in these areas, the tariffs are pretty high, and I don't think he's going to stick to his guns on sectoral tariffs particularly. And that's going to be very, very impactful on consumers, and also for small businesses and for anybody who uses an intermediate product which is embodied in a final good and sold in America. I think everything across the board, from something as simple as copper and copper derivatives, is going to have an impact on prices down the line in the months or so, in a few months or so.
Let's talk about supply chains, how they are faring so far, and also what these constant changes are doing to U.S. manufacturers and exporters.
No, absolutely. There's just complete uncertainty at this point of time. What they're right now trying to do is load up on inventory so that you don't have to pay those tariffs. But there's too much uncertainty, and there's an amount of how far you can keep loading up on tariffs. So there's tremendous uncertainty going forward, and that's not going to change, frankly, for the near term.
Sir, we have a very short amount of time left, about 30 seconds. What is China's reaction to all of this?
China's reaction is, from its end, stick to its gun, wrestle the Americans down to a fair deal, and secondly, to ensure that in these other third country deals, that there are no provisions installed in them to ensure that China needs to be decoupled or de-risked or move out of supply chains. And China is willing to make threats to those countries that one must abide by international law and multilateral treaty standards.